This week's podcast episode is brought to you by Insuring Income. Insuring Income is your source for all things term life insurance and own occupation disability insurance. Insuring Income has a relationship with America's top-rated term life insurance and disability insurance companies so that pharmacists like you can easily find the best solutions for your personal situation. To better serve you, Insuring Income reviews all applicable carriers in the marketplace for your desired coverage, supports clients in all 50 states, and makes sure all of your questions get answered along the way. To get quotes and apply for term, life, or disability insurance, see sample contracts from disability carriers, or learn more about these topics, visit insuringincome.com/your financial pharmacist. Again, that's insuringincome.com/your financial pharmacist.
We, as pharmacists, I consider are problem solvers, right? We fix people's ailments with drugs and we tailor their regimens. And so the same thing happens with products or services. If I could fix your life to be better, even by a little bit, hey, that's sweet. That is your why.
You're listening to the Your Financial Pharmacist podcast, a show all about inspiring you, the pharmacy professional, on your path towards achieving financial freedom. Hi, I'm Tim Albrecht, and on this week's episode, I interview Karine Wong, a pharmacist, educator, and entrepreneur, about her journey starting My Guiltless Treats. We discuss how her pharmacy career and skills obtained were relevant to her entrepreneurial journey, how to determine whether or not a business idea is worth pursuing, why it is so important to have a clear purpose and vision, and why it's important to say yes when starting and running your own business. Karine, thank you so much for taking time to be on the show.
Hi, Tim. How are you?
I am doing well. Excited to have you on. We had a chance to meet virtually a few weeks ago and had an opportunity to learn a little bit about your pharmacy career as well as the work that you're doing with My Guiltless Treats, and said, hey, we need to get this in front of the YFP community, as I know many folks may have an idea that they're wondering about, whether it's a business idea, a side hustle idea, and I think featuring other pharmacy entrepreneurs is really an opportunity for them to see examples of what others are doing out there. So let's first start with your pharmacy education and career. Why did you go into pharmacy? Where did you go to pharmacy school? And what type of work have you done in pharmacy throughout your career?
I went to pharmacy school right out of high school, straight into University Pacific in Stockton, California, and endured a 5-year program. It's an accelerated program to be a PharmD at the end of 5 years. By the end of the 5 years, I really loved the clinical field. I actually wanted to be a doctor at that point, but at that point, my parents decided not to support me anymore. So I was stuck being a PharmD. That's okay. At the time, pharmacy it's a world that can be anything you want it to be. You could be a CVS pharmacist, a Kaiser, nuke pharmacy, ambulatory care. The world's your oyster. I chose to stay in the hospital field. I felt that was the best place for me to be surrounded by the greatest minds of medicine. And so I stayed in hospital pharmacy when I graduated in 1999. And I worked up the totem pole. So I was a graveyard pharmacist, worked up to an outpatient pharmacist, did some floating here and there, became a director of pharmacy at one point, but stayed put as a coordinator, which is a fancy word for clinical manager. So I was in charge of all the P&T minutes, agenda items, formulary additions, deletions, and MUE studies. I also got to precept students from Western University for 8 years. And I'd also participated in messing around with the teaching staff at the hospital. So it's always been in academic settings in terms of the hospitals. I was always teaching nurses or students, medical interns and residents, and pharmacy students. So that's pretty much my journey. Always learning.
Always learning, which is a good connection to business. And we're going to talk a little bit about how your pharmacy career has played a role in the work that you're doing and running your own business. So My Guiltless Treats, and we'll link to that in the show notes for folks so they can learn more, check out the website, learn about the products that you offer. Give us the 20,000 foot view. What is My Guiltless Treats all about?
My Guiltless Treat was not something I intended to start at all. If you had told me 20 years ago I would start a business, I'd laugh in your face. I go, no, I'm going to live and die in my pharmacy office. That's what I thought I would do. Time to change now. I think I got burnt out at pharmacy. I was really good at what I was doing, and I was running codes. I was helping the pharmacy staff with all the difficult cases we had at our hospital. when 2008 rolled around, I took some time off to give birth to my child. And I came across this fitness instructor who wanted to increase more protein intake, but it did not taste good. And she complained about, why does it taste awful? Now, as a pharmacist, I thought, that's kind of funny. I don't take protein myself, but don't you think it's odd that we can make steroid solution taste really great, but we can't make something as simple as protein taste better?
Right. Yeah.
So I told her, I can make it for you. I'll make you a protein candy. And that's how my Guiltless treat came to fruition. I did create a product that was a delicious treat. At the end of the 5 years of working with her with R&D and lackluster sales, we decided to split up. She went to pursue a different career path, but I stayed on board. The original treat that we had, they're actually protein gummies, was not scalable. It wasn't something that people wanted to buy. We had no sales to warrant the continuation. We had people who loved it, but it wasn't like a lot to justify a $50,000 investment into buying 1 million gummies. Okay, that's a lot of gummies to sell. It's almost like 2 pallets. And it wasn't scalable. It wasn't something that we can sell. So she took off, which is fine. But I stayed on with the company because I still believe it had so much potential for it. So I looked at Guiltless Treats as a vehicle to deliver treats or desserts to diabetics, to those who really need it. And this aha moment came back to me when I was working at the hospital. I remember counseling at the bedside and doing diabetic teaching to our patients with diagnosed diabetes. And I would teach them how to use insulin, the syringes. One gentleman stuck in my mind because he was very non-compliant. His A1C was double digits. And I had to tell him, okay, senor, no more bread, no more rice. And he said, okay, I would love to do it, but senorita, I want my bread. I want my Mexican bread. I want that. And I looked at him and go, okay, I guess I'll see you in 3-6 months, right? What can I do? He told me he's not compliant and he's not going to change. He gave me a dare. He said, unless you can tell me something that is good for me and delicious, I'll eat that. And I had no answer for him. That was an aha moment. That was the moment I realized, oh my gosh, he's right. So I go downstairs and I ask my dietitian friends, my physician friends, what do you tell patients what can they eat that's good? And you know what they all told me? While they're eating their Twinkies and their Ho-Hos, you tell them to eat their kale.
Oh, geez.
Quinoa's good. Brown rice is supposed to be better. This is what they're telling me.
Yeah.
But they weren't eating it. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, I can't use that, okay? Because they don't know how to make kale salad or quinoa rice. They don't know how to do that. It's not part of their culture. So I was up against the wall. So when my fitness instructor friend mentioned about the protein gummies, I thought that actually sounds interesting because I can take away the sugar and replace it with another macronutrient like protein. So even though the gummies didn't come to fruition, there was a point to Guiltless Treats. There was a reason for it. I need to make something for that gentleman. I need to make a dessert, something that he can have that doesn't taste medicinal, that doesn't use artificial colors or flavors or sweeteners, something that he can grab at the store, not have to make it, not have to thaw it or bake it, but can eat it right out like a ready-to-use cup. So, haha. 6 months later, after intense R&D, I created or actually made a version of my own panna cotta. Panna cotta is Italian dessert similar to flan or custard. It's very soft in texture. I don't use heavy whipping cream or eggs or gluten or milk. I just use coconut cream, which is better for you. It doesn't cause the same problems as animal fat. And I layer it over real mango, pineapple, or guava. So it's a tropical dessert. And then I fortify the dessert with protein from milk protein. But it's ultra filtrated. So there's no lactose. There's nothing that'll make you bloated. I deliberately made my product allergen free. I took the top 7 allergens that we see in states and took them away. So nuts, there's no seafood, there's no tree nuts, stuff like that. So I avoid that. Coconut is not considered a same nut as a tree nut. So it's okay to use that. And I've been successful with the panna cotta desserts. People love it. It's a thing now. People know me as the panna cotta lady because I'm the only one on the East Coast that makes it, and I make it healthy. So it's the only dessert that you can find that's actually good for you. So you can eat it instead of your ice cream at nighttime. You can eat it as instead of yogurt at breakfast. Or like my friends at the hospital, they eat it during a shift. So when they have a long shift, the protein sustains them for the entire 10-hour shift that they have. So it's a great option for everybody. You don't have to be a diabetic or pre-diabetic to enjoy. You could be anyone. It's just a dessert that's healthier. Other manufacturers can't do that because they put lots of sugars in their products. They don't really know what we know as pharmacists. And that's why being a pharmacist really helps your product if you're going for the food industry, because you know so much.
Yes, absolutely. That makes sense. And one of my favorite stories, Karine, from our conversation several weeks ago was, and get the story right if I have it wrong, but you had mentioned at the gift shop of the hospital, this being distributed and sold, and how quickly it would come and go, and that you knew you were on to something in terms of folks that obviously appreciated the product, the quality of it, and certainly those that could benefit from it from a health perspective as well. And it has me thinking, we'll take a little bit of an aside here, but many folks may be listening that have an idea, right? And so you had an idea of something could be done better. You mentioned the protein gummies, which ultimately didn't come to its full fruition. So what ultimately does make a good idea? As you're thinking of this, not only with your own business here and other experiences you've had, but also potentially advising and giving input to other folks that have business ideas, what makes a good idea? What's the framework in which you think of, what is this idea and does it actually have viability going forward?
That's a great question. And I'm going to save people lots of time and energy because I can break it down for you in this way. I actually have a lot of students or mentees I work with who have ideas, and ideas come in and out of your mind all day long. Doesn't mean you act on every single idea. Okay. So what makes a good idea an idea that you probably want to sit on? First, the idea that you have, whether it's a service or a product, should be there to solve a problem. And the problem could just be just to you. But if you find that this problem really bugs you, let's suppose that it bugs you that every year your smoke alarm will run out of batteries and always at 2:00 in the morning, right? Every night,
Amen.
right? I don't know how they do it. And that's the night that you can't sleep. That's when you like jolt out of bed with a, almost like MI, because it's like, beep, beep, and it won't stop, especially if you have like 5 in your house and you don't know which one it is, right? What if that's a problem for you? If it's a problem for you, it's a problem for someone else and probably many others that have smoke alarms. Number 2, if you could develop a product like a battery or a monitoring system that tells you when your battery is low, like if you could find a way to make an app that Bluetooth the battery life to your smoke alarm, that would be superb. And you don't have to physically make the app. You just have to hire someone that can code it for you. You tell them what you want and they make it for you. It's pretty simple. But you have to have the idea. You have to do the research and find out, is there a market for it? So for I know, every house in the United States has to have smoke alarms, right? That's a law.
Yep.
Number 2, so the market's very big. Number 3, does anyone make that besides you? Like, is there a competition out there? Now, if there is, it doesn't mean you don't do it. It just means that if there's no competition, you have a more difficult road because you have to pave the road for yourself. You have to do all your market research and find out how to get the pricing down, find the right coder for it, for example, and get the best pricing for that. But if you have competition, you could follow them and see how are they doing. Okay, I'll give you an example. Protein gummies was my first SKU. We had 3 competitors. That was back in 2010. Today, they're all defunct. Why? Because no one wanted protein gummies. Interesting. They all went bankrupt. We didn't go bankrupt. We just changed our name. Going to number 3, you have to find out if there's competition or not. Okay. Number 4, if it's a good idea, it's an idea that will come back to you the next day.
Yes.
So an idea that's okay goes away next day. You don't remember it. You just like, whatever. I don't remember the idea. It just came and go. It didn't stick around. But if the idea is awesome and you find there's potential in it because of what you know, whether it's a pharmacist or as a handyman or living in your house and hearing that every year, the smoke alarm chirping, then that idea will come back to you. And you're like, you know what? I won't let it go. I can't let it go because it's a really good idea. And that's how you know. So those are 4 benchmarks. And just like when you solve a patient, check them off, right? Do you have a problem that you're solving? Check. Can you make a service or a product that will solve it? Check. Competition, is there any? Check. Yes, there is. That's fine. Okay. That doesn't stop you. It just means that,
Yes.
hey, there's a market for it because clearly people have tapped into it. Now, there's too many competitors. You might want to like not do it because it's too hard. Like I would never go into the beverage market now because it's so super saturated. I would not go into the frozen industry because that frozen aisle is very coveted shelf space because it's frozen.
Yep.
So I can't get in there if I had the best tasting ice cream ever. I could not break into that. And number 4, like I said, if the idea comes back to you and you won't let it go, then you have a really good idea.
I love that, Karine. Very, very tangible advice. Checklist. We like checklists. We like thinking about things in sequential order. And I think your comment that resonates, several things in there, but multiple ideas that may come to folks doesn't mean we need to act on every one. What I actually do at home, my wife and I like to brainstorm various business ideas, and we write them down on a legal sheet, 8.5 by 11 yellow piece of paper. It's in my office. And then what I find is some of those we keep talking about, right? We come back 2 days later, 4 days later, 6 days later, 8 days later. And even some of those we may determine for other reasons in your 4 steps aren't viable. But those ones that we find we can't let them go, like that means, you're at least at the beginnings of something that obviously is important to you. The other thing I think about here, Karine, I'd love your input, is I think folks often struggle with, is this an idea that I really care about solving this problem and I have a solution that, I'm going to be really passionate about? And is it financially viable? Am I after the money? Am I after, the purpose in solving this problem, or both? And what advice would you have with folks, here as I hear your story? Obviously, at the end of the day, you got to run a business, but also is something that you saw could have a tremendous impact on patients. It was a problem that needed to be solved. And so the concern that folks might be chasing, becoming rich or having a home run of a product, and how important it is to be passionate about the problem that you're trying to solve.
The way I look at it is your company is your baby. If you've lost interest in your baby, the company literally dies. So imagine yourself, like you're in charge of YFP. You decide, you know what, I'm going to take a break and do something else. Well, guess what? The company that you built falls apart. It may take a while, but it will fall apart because you are the glue that holds it together. So you're the why. Why are you doing this? Has to be something that you will use every morning you wake up. Every morning you clock in, you turn on your recording, or you reach out to people for your interviews. That is your why. Why are you doing it? And if you say money, because I want to be a millionaire or be featured on Ellen, the show, you're going to have issues, okay? Because the likelihood of that is almost as high as winning the lottery. It's very rare. Just like people who want to be on TikTok and they want to make it big. And that's pretty rare. What's your why? It should be because you're solving a problem that is important to you, that bugs you, and you want to solve it. We, as pharmacists, I consider are problem solvers, right? We fix people's ailments with drugs and we tailor their regimens. And so the same thing happens with products or services. If I could fix your life to be better, even by a little bit, hey, that's sweet. That is your why. I love that I know that my products help those that are enduring chemotherapy, or those with the canker sores from the chemotherapy, or has protein loss because of dialysis, or they just can't eat because they're cachectic, fail to thrive. Hey, my stuff is better than Insure Plus. My stuff is better than most medicinal foods. So that's my joy. That's my why. And if I stop my company, those consumers are affected. And that's why I don't stop. And there's more than one person. There's a lot. In fact, in about a month, I'll be celebrating my milestone. I didn't tell you this, Tim, but I'll have officially have sold 25,000 units.
Hey, congratulations.
That is not an easy feat. And I did it in about 18 months. So that's a lot of panacotas.
That is awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure if I was a big company that co-packs and manufactures it, I'm sure it makes a lot. But a single person by myself using pharmacist grade benchmarks, yeah, it's not easy. It takes a while to do it because I'm very picky. When I make products, I go beyond the food safety measures. Okay. Food safety measures are pretty low. Okay. It's like, don't put stuff in there like debris. Okay. Yeah, I get that. But I don't put pathogens in there. I don't put bacteria in there. My stuff is vacuum sealed, sterile, no pathogens, and lasts for 6 weeks without any bacteria counts that's of significance. And I do this with technicians and laboratories. So it's all certified. Okay. So I go beyond the scope of a food manager because I'm a pharmacist. I don't want to give people stuff. It's not liability. It's more like what makes you feel good. I want my patients, or not my patients, consumers to eat something healthy and it's not dirty or have full of debris or particulates. That's our nature as pharmacists, right? So going back to your question about your why, yes, your why. My why is because I want to help people beyond the medicine use. I want to help people at the marketplace, give them patient counseling. My patient counseling, I do more patient counseling now that's more viable, that's more significant to them than I would have at CVS. Because CVS is very fast paced and you only have so much time. But at the marketplace, I got time and they're much more open to me. So when I give them advice or a valuable tip, they love it. And they get to go home with that. And that's going to help them from this point on. So I give them a lot of hope and insight into their management of their disease state, whether it's diabetes or, eczema or Crohn's disease. I've heard it all. So I'm able to talk on that, not as their doctor, but as a pharmacist. And they trust me in that. And so it's not about sales, but they end up buying it because they like who I am and what I represent. So the why for everybody should be that you want to help people or you want to solve a problem. Those are the best whys you can have in your life. But if you're going to say money or stardom or fame, you can still do it. I won't stop you, but your journey every morning will be so much harder because it's tough. And so if you're hoping to be on Ellen's show and every morning you wake up and you make, 1,000 panna cottas, you might go, God, is it really worth it? You're going to be tired. You're going to be kind of burnt out real fast. And that's why those are really not good reasons to start a business. I'll give you an example, Tim. I actually had an investor that offered me lots of money to make CBD gummies. And this is right when the legislature passed the state law that legalizes like CBD and marijuana for recreational use. And he asked me to make it. He said, you'll make millions of dollars. And I believed him. I would make $1 million. And I said, no, not because I couldn't do it. Not because I didn't want the money, because it's not my jam. It's not my why. I could not make CBD gummies because it's not like I don't think it works. I think it works great. I don't think no matter how much money you throw at me, I would do it. It just doesn't make me happy. It doesn't solve anyone's problem. At least it does solve a problem, but it's not a problem that I want to solve. Does that make sense to you? It is a problem, but it's not my jam. It's not my passion to solve that problem or to help those patients. It could be yours. It could be someone else's. And that's what I did. I deferred.
So important. And I can't echo enough of what you just said there. Even thinking of, what we've been working on at YFP, hearing your story here, hearing other stories of pharmacist entrepreneurs that I talked with, having that motivation and a why of something that you care about, a problem that you care about, that you want to solve is so critically important to investing the time and energy that's going to have an impact. Karine, I want to talk for a moment about the gap between having an idea and from there getting to a minimum viable product, and perhaps from there being able to actually grow and scale something. Big separation, big gap between having an idea and actually being able to grow that idea perhaps into its full potential. And I think pharmacists may hear your story or hear other entrepreneurial stories and hear from folks that have been successful, however you may define success. And for you, selling 25,000 units in 18 months, that's overwhelming. You know what? I have this idea. And I hear Karine talking about R&D, about growing, scaling, manufacturing, hiring a team. Wow, maybe I should just stop pursuing my idea right now because that feels overwhelming. What advice would you have for folks that are listening that say, you know what, I have this idea and I just don't know where to go from here?
The fear of pursuing an idea is very common. It's not unusual to hear an idea or come up with one and go, you know what, it's a good one, but nah, it's not going to work. And to have self-doubt because you're afraid. And I think as pharmacists, we're more risk adverse. So we don't want to take chances on something that we don't know much about. That's understandable. There's a few things that I do in my career, in my company, that help minimize that risk. First, when you hear an idea, obviously we don't put every single penny we have towards every idea, but look at the idea that you're thinking about. A good idea is an idea that will solve a problem that is going to affect many consumers, not just you, not just your family, but other pharmacists or other people in your industry or your role as a mother or father, some of the frustrations you see as maybe a student. And that is a problem. If you have had it and other people have had it, then that's a good market. That's one. You check that box. That's a pretty good market, pretty good idea. Second, you have to create the solution. An idea is just basically tells you that we need something to help fix that problem. Your job is to find out a solution, whether it's a product like my product, a dessert, a snack, a service, or even a device that you create, then that is what you need to come up with. And that's probably what you're talking about when it comes to MVP, minimum viable product. It is a product or service that will bring in people to buy your product or service in exchange for money to solve that problem. And that is what investors look for, is how good or awesome is your MVP. Well, many of my pharmacists always tell me, oh, I'm not creative, or I don't know how to make dessert, or I'm not a baker, or I'm not an engineer. Neither am I. But you are resourceful. You're a pharmacist, so you can easily hire a coder to perhaps make a software app for iPhones that would track down smoke alarms in your house and find out when that battery is going to run out. You can hire engineers to create a device for you. My whole point is that designing, creating a product doesn't have to be a solo mission. In my case, it's a solo mission because, well, heck, we're always in the compounding laboratories and we're always making something. And I'm a mom, so I'm always baking new recipes. It's just more experimentation. So you don't have to be a chef or a professional engineer or writer or anything that to pursue a product or device or something that solves a problem. So that's number 2, is find a solution, create it. Number 3, now you got to test it. You got to find out if your market that you've identified, like the other moms in your area, the pharmacists in your industry, like what you're selling. And I don't mean people like your mom or your dad or your brother, sister, your husband. They don't really care. Not to say their opinions don't matter, but they're really nice and they love us. So they'll say whatever makes us happy. You want to know if your friend or friend or friend is going to buy your product or MVP. So this is a person that doesn't know you, has no connection with you, and is more likely to give you an honest opinion. If they're willing to give you money in exchange for that service or product that you're providing for a problem that you both share, you have an awesome idea that is worth pursuing. With that being said, if you get like 1,000 ideas in a given month, maybe 1 or 2 might be feasible or fit all those check boxes. To me, the ones that really require more attention are the ones that stick around. I have a lot of ideas and I don't always move on every single idea, but if an idea comes back to me in 2 or 3 consecutive days or weeks, like I just can't let it go. I dream about it. I obsess about it. I think about it when I'm running. Now that's an idea worth pursuing because your subconscious knows it's a good idea. Karine, don't let it go. Mm-hmm. It's something worth pursuing. That's why if you look at my bio, I've done more than just my Guiltless treats. I've actually written a book. I have created an app for pharmacy students to help prepare for the board exam and medical students to help with their step boards. So I'm not just limited to the world of pharmacy. I'm not limited to the food industry. If I feel there's a problem, in which I did, I hired coders, I learned how to write, I hired editors, I had a publishing team that all helped me get to where I'm at.
That's great. And one of the questions, Karine, that I'm thinking of as you're sharing your story is when I hear 25,000 units in 18 months, obviously you are solving a problem that people are interested in, that are raising their hand to purchase, but you haven't scaled nationally into large retailers despite the opportunity being there to do so, and that has been an intentional move as I understand it. So my question here is how and why did you arrive to the decision that you wanted to control your growth?
There are 2 reasons why I chose to control my growth. In the food industry world, there's a saying, you go hard in your backyard. That means that all your marketing, all your efforts to brand, to market should be in your local region. It doesn't make sense for me to, let's say again, Costco or Whole Foods nationally when I'm here in California. No one in Chicago or East Coast knows who Karine Wong is or who the Guiltless girl is or what panna cotta is that's made of coconut cream. They don't know. So it's going to be a very hard sell. And now with COVID, it's even harder because I can't hire marketers to go out there to demonstrate the product.
Mm-hmm.
That's first reason, is to always market your product in your area. If you're able to do a service remotely, that's a little different. But the point is that people are more likely to buy your product, like my product, when they know you, heard about you, seen the car, seen your Instagram post, and if they're more familiar. So in California, in Orange County, I'm very popular as a Guiltless girl. Selling product is very easy. I sell in a few stores and they sell through, which means that nothing's left over. They always run out, and that's a positive sign. I'd rather have those benchmarks than to be in, let's say, 200 wholesale food stores and sell 10% of what I stocked.
Mm-hmm.
There is no glory in that. There is no fame or even money to be made when you're only selling a little bit at those stores. And eventually those stores will discontinue you because you cannot show velocity in their stores. So that's the first reason why you want to go hard in the backyard. And the second reason is that there has to be a balance. If all I did was Guiltless treats and nothing else, then yes, I would go national. I would go and find investors and get seed funding to go national. I would even go in Shark Tank because that's all I got going on. And my goal is to go national. And I would actually hire a larger team and brokers to get those milestones. But I am not just the CEO of this company. I'm also a professor. I teach remotely for pharmacy students for KGI, Western University, and UOP. So I'm busy with that, and I do love teaching pharmacy students. I'm also a pharmacist. I'm doing remote pharmacy from my home, and I'm a pharmacogenomics counselor. So there's a lot going on my plate. So I have to be home, and this is a good balance because I can spend maybe 3 days of a week doing Guiltless work, including weekends, and the other days are spent doing the teaching, being a parent, working out, kind of having time for myself. And the balance is fantastic because I'm very happy. And I feel successful because I do make money. I have enough money to pay for my staff. I have enough money to hire people to design logos for me. I can basically sustain, the company's sustainable on its own. So that's a sign of success. And I don't need to make $1 million from this. I just need to make it run on its own, which it is. And I need to have time for myself, my kids, my family, and to teach. If I lost all that, there is no glory. There is no fame. So controlling growth is about finding a balance where you have time for yourself and your family and your other hustles and passions, but also time for yourself and your company. It's a balance, really. And, I'm okay making what I'm making right now. I'm making profit, but yeah, I'm not a millionaire, and that's okay. I'm very happy with what I'm doing. You have to be okay with all those things. Unlike other entrepreneurs, for them, it's all about, I want to get in Costco. I want to get in Whole Foods. I want to be in all these, Kroger's and Bonds. Okay, that's your jam. It's not my jam. So just because they're saying it and they want it and their business coach is saying it doesn't mean it's for you. So you have to look at yourself and your life and see, is that for me?
That's great wisdom there. And I would encourage folks, to spend some time getting clear on your personal goals and why. In addition to what we're talking about here today, which is the business goals and why, as Karine shared her personal goals, the balance obviously informed her business goals and the direction that she has taken with the business. And Karine, I'm glad to hear what you said about controlled growth. I think we have glorified the grind and hustle and working hard at all costs. Perhaps it's a Shark Tank effect. I'm not sure, but I think it's a good reminder, of us each individually thinking about what success may look like. So, Karine, tell us about a lesson that you shared with me before we hit record, which was the power of saying yes. Tell us about, for you and your journey, saying yes to folks, why this was so important, even recently, in terms of the value and the power of saying yes as a business owner.
Being positive and affirmative is an attractant to other consumers. Consumers, when they buy a product or service, they're not just buying a product or service, they're buying from you. They're buying you. They love you. They want to be in your life. They want to be engaged with you. If you're negative or cheap or frugal or penny pinching, they're probably not going to come back to you. One of the things I adopt is generosity is key. If I can do it, I will. Whether it's emotional support, physical support, knowledge, expert advice, I'll do it. I have no problem at all. I consider ourselves a drug expert. So if someone asks me a question randomly in the aisles at Target, I'll be happy to help them. I have no qualms about holding back information because, oh, I don't work here or I'm on break or whatever. No, if you need help, let me help you. It's better that I help you than for you to find the answer yourself on, Wikipedia, which is not something I'd recommend. So when you say yes, the rule is this. Say yes to people if you can do it. For example, when you have a product or service, and especially in initial phases of your company, a lot of the times they'll be giving away product for free. And that may sound counterintuitive because you're trying to make money. But the first couple of years, you're not going to make money. And your goal is to let people try your product, even if it means giving away for free. Most people will not try a product and pay for it just to test the waters. It's better for you to give it away for free, gift it, donate it, mark it as a tax write-off on your income tax returns. And that allows people to try your product and go, you know what? She's quite generous or he's quite generous. They get to try for free. There's no contingency offers. There's no ulterior motives. They're going to feel warm and fuzzy with you. And they're going to love the product because, hey, you know what? This is a good product and I like it. And yeah, I would come back and ask for more and I would probably pay for it. So offering the first dose or first service or first product for free actually is a really awesome marketing idea if you could afford it. And usually you can't because you have the capital for that. If you can't afford it, don't do it. The other things you can offer for free would be your knowledge. If you know something, if you are very well read up on gluten diet, gluten-free foods, or celiac disease, or eczema and the relationship to dairy, definitely talk about it. A lot of consumers will come up to me once they discover who I am. They'll open up their hearts and tell me their medical problems. So I know a lot about their eczema, rosacea, their diabetes, and other problems, and I'm happy to help them. And they feel pretty much open because I'm not timing them, I'm not charging them, I'm not going to ask for the medical insurance, and it's a great exchange of information. So they value my input, and they usually walk away with a panna cotta. They usually walk away with something that I provide because they like who I am. So there's a generosity of knowledge. Mm-hmm. The other thing you can offer is your time. You didn't know this, but when the COVID hit, a lot of my colleagues were getting fired for obvious reasons. So I offered free CV reviews because I have experience hiring pharmacists and technicians. I said, submit your resume to me and we'll help brush it up. And it was great because people were sending me, people who I didn't know, I actually opened up publicly to everyone in my community, my neighborhood, and all of Huntington Beach. And I got so much response. And people even said, I liked it because I don't know who you are, Karine, but I love it that you're doing it. So people were referring me, sharing my posts, and I didn't charge them for it. I just wanted to look at their CVs, make recommendations, and I send it back to them. So I do it now, even for pharmacy students and those getting ready for residencies. Mm-hmm. Just, my opinion, just make it nicer, cleaner. And usually I can find one or two errors and they're very appreciative. Like, oh my God, I forgot to add this. Or, oh my gosh, I didn't know I had to add a header or footer. Those are kind of important things that we look at as a director because we get so many resumes for one position at a hospital pharmacy. So it helps to have page numbers and footnotes and lists of references instead of me asking for it. So those are little things that a lot of people don't see what I see. That's what I offer is my knowledge, my time, free product if I can do it, free service. And that at the end of the day, it makes the consumer, the other person, just like you more, like your company more. And guess what? All those people that I helped the first 2 years of my career, of my business, have come back as repeat customers. Mm-hmm. So I didn't charge them the first time, but guess what? Their total lifetime revenue for one customer is well over $100. So is it worth it? Yes.
Great advice. And the resume service is a good example of serving others, whether it's product, whether it's time. I think offering and bringing something valuable and serving others without necessarily a return in mind, but just providing that value in the moment, we know reaps great benefits. So I think you articulated the value of saying yes. Well, I try to follow that advice from mentors. I've received it before, and it's not about being reckless. I mean, as you mentioned, being the face of the brand, folks are looking for that energy. They're looking for that enthusiasm. They're looking for that, we'll figure it out, type of mentality as you go along and build some of those relationships. Karine, I really appreciate the time that you've taken, the wisdom that you've shared. What is the best way for our audience to connect with you, to learn more about your journey, as well as to follow the work that you're doing with My Guiltless Treats?
Very simple. Just go to myguiltlesstreat.com. On the very bottom of the homepage is send a message, goes straight to me. all of my emails and phone numbers, and even on Instagram and Facebook. If you go into my Guiltless streets, go straight to me. I don't believe in hiring a third party marketing agency for that because I want to engage my customers. So if you want to engage with me, just go straight on board to the website, email me, run by your ideas with me or any questions you have about possibly starting a company or a product, and we'll talk about the feasibility of it. It's better to rule it out or rule it in as early as possible before you even start putting money towards the project.
Absolutely. And we'll link to the website in the show notes. We'll link to some of the social media connection opportunities as well. And again, appreciate you taking the time, sharing your journey, and your willingness to also support and encourage other pharmacy entrepreneurs that are out there. So, Karine, thank you very much.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure, Tim. If you decide to come up with that smoke alarm app, you owe me 10% of your royalties.
You got it. It's a promise. Thank you.
Thanks.
Before we wrap up today's episode of the Your Financial Pharmacist podcast, I would like to again thank this week's sponsor, Insuring Income. If you are in the market to add own occupation disability insurance, term life insurance, or both, Insuring Income would love to be your resource. Insuring Income has relationships with all of the high-quality disability insurance and life insurance carriers that you should be considering and can help you design coverage to best protect you and your family. So head on over to insuringincome.com/your financial pharmacist or click on their logo or link in the show notes to request quotes, ask a question, or start down your own path of learning more about this necessary protection.